Thanks for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Let's get to your day's headlines today. A look from the Vatican this morning as Catholics around the world are mourning the death of Pope Francis. Church officials announcing this morning that his funeral will take place on Saturday. They also released the cause of his death as Vatican officials begin the ancient rites for a man who led the church in the modern world, while cardinals prepare the conclave to elect a new pope. NBC's Alice Barr has details in Washington.
Hi there. The Vatican's announcement this morning that Pope Francis's funeral will be on Saturday is giving shape to the formal and time-honored process of grieving the Pope before choosing a successor. As tributes pour in for the people's Pope who led the Catholic Church toward a more progressive path.
Pope Francis had a way of getting the church to think outside the box.
Centuries-old traditions are underway. While the faithful mourn, cardinals are at the Vatican going through details of the funeral now set for Saturday. Their first meeting since Pope Francis's death at 88, caused, the Vatican says, by a stroke and heart failure. President Trump is preparing to attend the funeral.
He was a good man, worked hard. He loved the world.
Though as dignitaries descend, Pope Francis is being remembered most for his devotion to the among us.
He is the Pope of the poor, the Pope of the marginalized, underprivileged.
With a heart for children, Jocelyn Aquino met Pope Francis when she was just 12 years old, greeting him on his one and only visit to the U.S. back in 2015. The daughter of immigrants from El Salvador spoke in Spanish with the first Pope from Latin America.
This is the leader of the Catholic Church. This is the most powerful man. And I was just like, wow, you spoke to me in my native language.
A leader who spoke to so many, even beyond the Catholic Church. He addressed Congress on that trip to Washington, never shying away from voicing his views, from ending the wars in Ukraine and Gaza to advocating for immigrants and moving toward acceptance for the LGBTQ community. Often at odds with traditionalists, he cemented his legacy as a reformer. As cardinals prepare for the conclave to elect his successor and decide the next direction for the Catholic Church. Pope Francis named more than 100 of the 135 cardinals who will gather to vote for the next pope over the next couple of weeks. That move to reshape the global church means the electors could be more likely to continue the path of reform, though there will be a traditionalist movement to course correct as well. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
And over the last 24 hours, we've been hearing countless stories of those touched by Pope Francis here at home. Former Immaculate Conception School principal Jane Bona was one of 4 Minnesotans recently recognized by the Pope for their dedication to Catholic education.
To me, this was such a beautiful recognition of the work that I've done, but it's really more about all of us as Catholic school educators and the work that we're doing.
She was presented with a medal and a scroll from the Vatican and Pope Francis just a few weeks ago. And the Catholic Church has lost its Pope, and the world has lost a champion for the most vulnerable among us. From the beginning, Pope Francis sought to push the church to the margins and the marginalized, and in the end, many found a way in it. Here's Kent Erdahl.
What do you need, sir?
As someone who has dedicated her life to lending a hand to those overlooked by most of society,
I can give you $5.
Mary Jo Copeland, founder of Sharing and Caring Hands,
So let it be joyful and hope,
knows she's lost a kindred spirit.
persevering in our prayer. The poor usually aren't talked about as much Pope Francis did.
Talk from the leader of the Catholic Church is powerful in its own right. Copeland says the Pope's impact went beyond words, something she was lucky enough to experience firsthand.
I was able to go see him and get a hug.
What did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. There was a peace that radiates from the man. I mean, I never met the other popes, but when I walked in there, you can just see this joy in what he does. Be here at 10 o'clock and I'll take care of you. There's a joy in helping people. I mean, I have the same thing. Those are your children. The Pope would have loved to be with me here. Is this shelter?
And it's why, on a day many Catholics gathered to mourn,
They've been here 4 years.
she continued serving the poor as he would have loved.
He doesn't have to suffer anymore. I'm sure this last few months were hard for him because he was used to being in the crowds and traveling and moving, and I'm sure that he felt he didn't want to go, but now he can go home and be with his Lord that called him and be rewarded for the impact that he's made on our world.
In a lot of ways, maybe his biggest impact was on those outside the church.
Father Chris Collins, Vice President of Mission for the University of St. Thomas, says the Pope had a knack for connecting with the younger generation, such as in his encyclical letter on climate change titled Our Common Home.
But even there, it was all about how the poor are those who are most affected when the environment is degraded in any number of ways. It's not just about the environment, it's about people who suffer because of it.
And he challenged the church and world leaders with the same kind of radical compassion.
Especially migrants and refugees. You know, he had a very particular focus on caring for those who've been displaced for all kinds of different reasons, whether it's by war or other reasons.
He had to challenge them so they could maybe take a different look at the way that they're doing things. I really believe that. And you know the biggest impact I think he made? He didn't judge anybody. And the world judges people. If they're standing on a corner with a sign, oh, that guy's on welfare, we can't help him. He probably... If we judge people, we can't love them. And that really is what the whole story is. Love is what they're needing. And I think that the Pope showed that to the world. Now and at the hour of our death, amen. God loved the poor. That message was something I felt from him. Okay, come on. I did. I'm going to miss that man.
Well, heads up if you live in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Spring street sweeping is underway, and if you're parked in their way, you could get ticketed or towed. Audrey Russo is in Minneapolis with a look at what to look out for.
Don't brush over a sign like this. Starting today, it's spring street sweeping time here in Minneapolis. Crews began sweeping a handful of areas in the city this morning, starting at 7 a.m. The effort will last through mid-May with the goal of clearing debris off of more than 1,100 miles of roadway. To avoid bristling with surprise, there's a map on Minneapolis's website scheduling out when each neighborhood is set to be swept. The key for you, though, is to keep an eye out for the pink signs. They'll go up 24 hours before the sweep. Keep your car off the street between 7 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. or whenever you see the signs come down. Otherwise, you could get a $45 ticket plus a $140 tow. Those costs are listed online. And if your car does get swept up in the towing operation, you're going to want to make sure you have your VIN number or your license plate number handy. Those pieces of information are what you'll use to look up whether or not your car is in the city's impound lot, and you can do that on the Minneapolis website. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. 12 jurors have begun deliberating in the murder conspiracy trial of doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell. She's accused of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. He was shot by Daybell's brother, Alex Cox, back in 2019, but prosecutors say Daybell also played a role in the murder and highlighted her texts and actions as evidence. Daybell represented herself in this trial and claimed self-defense. Daybell has already been convicted in Idaho for murdering her two children, Tylee and JJ. She's also convicted for her role in the death of her current husband's first wife. Her husband, Chad Daybell, was also convicted in Idaho for murdering Lori's children and his first wife. He was sentenced to death in that state. We're tracking new developments right now about the FAA's investigation into what caused a Delta plane's engine to burst into flames just before taking off. You can see in this video the engine on fire, and the plane is pushed back from the gate at the Orlando airport. All 282 passengers on board were forced to evacuate. Officials with Delta say that thankfully no one was hurt. And this morning we're hearing from passengers who were on board when those flames broke out.
All of a sudden, a lot of people in that row in front, they jumped up and people were trying to let their windows up. Immediately, the flight attendant was telling everybody, stand down, sit down, sit down. The next thing I know, she immediately, get off the plane, don't take anything with you, just get off now.
Terrifying moments for sure. Right now, the cause of the fire is still unclear, but Delta says maintenance teams will examine the aircraft. Well, this morning, you got to check your fridge or freezer because Aldi's recalling these pork carnitas. If you have them, get rid of them. Officials say the product in question may be contaminated with small metal pieces. The pork from Cargill Meat Solutions was sold at Aldi stores across the country. So far, there's no word of any related injuries. Hey, it's a big day for Minnesota sports fans. The Wolves and Wild are waking up in the West ahead of their playoff games tonight. The Wolves are in LA taking on the Lakers. That one starts at 9 p.m. And the Wild even later hit the ice in Vegas at 10 p.m. Should be good. Well, stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.